Welcome to our June webinar. Today we are talking with Johanna and Nick about living humanist values. Johanna Schwartz is the owner and co-operator of Congress Coffee alongside her partner Nick Papai. After a 20 plus year career in nonprofit communications, Johanna wanted to get out of the office and shift her focus to a more grassroots endeavor. She dreamed of recreating the best of the 90s era coffeehouse culture with a focus on connection, conversation, and creativity. With the tiniest of budgets and a whole lot of sweat equity, Congress Coffee launched in 2023. Nick Papai is the sound technician and co-operator at Congress Coffee alongside his partner Johanna Schwartz. Nick specializes in analog sound, using his decades of experience as an acoustician, electrician, and carpenter to develop the live music component of Congress. Nick has built Congress a reputation in the local music community as one of the best sounding rooms to perform in, and will happily share his knowledge and passion for acoustics. When not recording live jazz shows or miking up all ages punk bands, Nick is working to better the community of Greenview Industrial, where Congress is located, as the president of the Greenview Business Improvement Area. The Greenview Business Improvement Area manages taxes collected from businesses in the neighborhood, directing funds to enhance safety, beautify the neighborhood, and activate creative spaces through activities like the annual Tango 2 Echo Street Festival and the Graffiti Jam. Welcome, Johanna and Nick, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
It was our absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting us.
So, can you start by just sharing a little bit about yourselves and sort of how we know each other?
Why don't you start, Nick?
Okay. Um, I remember meeting you one day. I was talking to a familiar face in the cafe, and you came in, and we had quite a few shared common interests, and we had talked about how our particular personal journeys exiting from religious endeavors for the most part, and how it has affected our life going forward, and what kind of a hole it leaves with the community and our day-to-day lives. And I remember us talking about how we could potentially get together and allow that discourse to happen with a group of people.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And so we started a monthly group that Nick and Johanna host in their cafe called Thriving Without Religion. And we've been typically getting out, between 10 and 15 people every month and having really robust conversations. So it's been lovely.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I love
Johanna,
seeing.
please, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd say I love seeing that event really work and take off and have like really good engagement and new faces that come in I was personally my personal story on that side is I was raised atheist. That was one of the nicest gifts my parents I think gave to me. And I've it's been fascinating meeting Nick and really learning the story of what his childhood was like, what his life has been like, and being able to kind of introduce him to a secular environment in a way that has been like, I'm also a little weird. I'm a little weird. I'm a little queer. A little kooky. So I think, it's been a bit of a barometer test to see that how much of the stuff that I love, Nick is willing to get on board with. And he's been such a great, great companion that way. I'm
Thank,
thrilled.
thank you. And Nick, you were brought up in quite a strict religious tradition, yeah?
Yeah, so I mean, to give you a little bit of background, I was 34 years as a Jehovah's Witness. Essentially, I was born into it. Mostly, my mom's side of the family was very religious, but before my birth, my dad was also part of it. So the only thing I can remember really was, going to church on Sunday and Wednesday and other days, like more than 3 times a week typically. And that lasted until I was about 34 and kind of struck out on my own. So I've been out of it now for
10 years.
yeah, 10, 12 years. And it's still a struggle because those things are very deep rooted and kind of hard to get over. When you're used to something that's a, day-to-day part of your life, being at it for a decade seems like it might cure you, but really the progress is slow.
Mm.
So it's really nice to get together with people that are, going through the same thing and talking about it and kind of getting it out where it's on the forefront. You can actually think through it. Well, it's one of my favorite things about the group.
Mhm.
All of the experiences, although they are different, different religions or different backgrounds, there's a lot of shared trauma between all of us, really. So it's been nice to get it out.
Yeah,
So, Joanne, Nick,
Marty,
I
just
just had a quick question.
I'll just ask you to save your questions until the end, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so Johanna, you mentioned wanting to recreate the best of 90s era coffee house culture. What do you think modern society has lost with the decline of those spaces, and how does Congress intentionally bring that magic back?
Definitely. So, I turned 50 the year that the cafe opened. So, 90s culture is my growing up time, my 20s, my stomping grounds, and uh, the things that I'm deeply nostalgic for, without also recognizing that it wasn't by any means or stretching a perfect time either. But what I really feel like we're losing, and I see this in try to instill this in my children, is even as an adult, is the sense of free play, like untethered experience. Um, and in as much as that I see, it hurt my heart as I was raising my children to even say that even if I would encourage them to go out to the playground, just go out and do something, there was literally no one else around to participate in that. They would come back and they're like, there's no other kids out there, Mom. Like, no one's around. And I feel like it was kind of the same in this idea of like, you could be a person who could walk into a space, a coffee shop, and go on an adventure. Like that was my experience. You'd meet up with people that you knew. You didn't have a preconceived plan, and then all of a sudden, you're off doing something together, or just creativity and things happen. And I feel like we're very isolated. And even when even if we're making a plan to meet up with a good friend to come, just to get together, it's still very constrained. And I think there's the boundaries are set by our phones and by our structure and by our overwork, and we're not giving ourselves that space. And I think a coffee shop that tells you to stay instead of go, and a space that says, look around you, listen, see what's happening here. Don't just have your headphones on and your laptop in front of you. Hopefully, actually, it's been demonstrated has changed how some people interact in their neighborhood and through coming into the space. And it's something I hear a lot. So uh, I people who grew up knowing what that could have been like pre-internet existence are grateful for it, and people who have never experienced that are kind of astounded by it,
Wow.
which feels great.
And it is such an interesting place to be in, the space. There's multiple things to engage in and to listen to and visually to see. So it does give you that experience. It pulls you out of your phone, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about this concept of a third space, which is fundamentally about human connection outside of work and home. And in an increasingly digital and isolated world, why do you think creating a physical space for shared human experience is a vital act of humanist empathy?
If if we don't have places to gather, to plan, to come up with good trouble, how do we make things change? How do we move things forward? Um, Seeing the humanist perspective, to me also means such a variety of people. And one of the reasons why we've kept the programming, I consider Congress, I say it's community driven, is because even though I think I have impeccable taste, not everybody wants to do what this middle-aged white lady wants to do, and and I don't have all the answers. And I have a very limited perspective by nature of just who I am. So when I made the decision to basically open the space to be filled with whatever people wanted to fill it with, and I just say my job is to say yes. Um, the variety of humanity and humanistic intentions. Like people want to use the space for political rallies, for zine making, for queer storytelling, for for your group, for Buddhist workshops, for sexy rope tying events. Like there's so many different things that people see, um, and then they start to cross over, and it's incredible watching that interchange and the interactions that start to happen.
Yeah, it's beautiful that you've built this space that is allowing people to explore, what it means to them to be human.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. You both put an immense amount of sweat equity into Congress, transitioning from more traditional and secure careers. From a humanist perspective, how has taking ownership of this space contributed to your own sense of personal fulfillment and living an authentic life?
Now,
Do you want to start with that?
sure. I think it's been great because the intention of design of that space was, for myself anyways, that I wanted to sit on the couch and be surrounded by talent. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well be comfortable. So, I'm going to build it in a way that makes me comfortable when I'm there. Um, it's turned it into a space that's not so much about work or, having to do an event or the production side of things. It's more a personal relationship with everyone who walks through the door. And it's the same reason that, like, I could do all of these things the easy digital way that's new, but I prefer the harder work, the physical connection with analog, the fact that there isn't many spaces in the world like this left. And it allows me to be more connected with what I'm actually doing because with analog, there is a physical connection. Um, and so that makes it easy for me to go to work every day and have different people come in and have all these different experiences. And I think that shows.
Mhm.
A lot of people come in and, wow, this place is like, no other place we've ever been. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. You
Right.
know?
Mhm. And I think as cliche it is as it is, literally say at least 3 or 4 times a week, like, this is filling my cup. Doing this work is filling my cup. And I was at a point in my career where I was, I call it like the spreadsheet era, of my career, and especially in communications where I was getting, into the director level and kind of away from the grassroots, away from the hands-on, and just getting to the more like people management and like accountability to CEOs and things. And it was getting dull. And like the quick story, we say we had a meager budget. The only reason we had a budget at all was because my mother died. And just at the end of COVID, very quick cancer, 4 months from like diagnosis to hospice. And my mom was a entrepreneur herself. She had her own hot dog business that she ran with her husband. And when her house was sold, um, for the very first time in my life, after choosing to spend 20 years in nonprofit and raising 2 kids on my own, I had literally $100,000, which was like the most money I'd ever seen in my life. And I could have taken that, I suppose, and just bought like a Jugo Juice franchise or something, or a Subway, and then like I hated my life forever because it wasn't the glamour of working in food retail that was inspiring me to do Congress. The coffee, I always say, is just like the pathway into the community space. And this concept came to me fully formed. Like I was like, I want to do this in my neighborhood. I want it to be like this, da 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 da. And I was doing this on my own in my own mind. And I thought, wow, 100 grand, that's so much money. It's just so not much money at all. Then I literally, and then I met Nick. Nick and I did not know each other, and we met on a dating app. And I said that he was like a burst of color in a sea of like dullness. And he actually put me in his phone as like cafe girl, I think, right? Like when we had, because our first date, I just talked about this idea that I had. And, you know, the fact that he had the skills to do this, and we had this conversation, and we tested out our ability to work together under some pressure tests, and just figured out we could do this really well. And then we just rolled up our sleeves and got it done. And I haven't stopped working a day since the day we opened. Like literally, we opened up, like we had our fire, inspection, and then literally someone was knocking on the door, and they're like, "Are you open?" And we were like, "I guess we are." Click, and then like just didn't take a day off for a year and a half, like literally. Um, but every one of those days I wouldn't give away for anything. Like seriously, it has been incredible. And all the assumptions that I had about um all the fears that I had about thinking that maybe this feels like vanity, like how dare I create something, like who am I? Who am I to do this? All that imposter syndrome, all of those things still live in me. Um, I also, just discovered so quickly a huge group of people, well, at the beginning, a small group of people, but they've become a large group of people who literally, I say this every single day, somebody walks into that space and says, "Wow, what is this?
Yeah.
Who are you? Why did you do this?" And I'm not joking. Like it happens every day.
Mhm.
And so I get to tell this story again. And then I get to hear someone say, "This means a lot to me," And then, and that is not an experience you expect from just opening up a coffee shop,
Right.
I don't think, in general, right? Or even a live music venue, you
Yeah.
know? Um, the combination of what we're doing, and just we just I like to say that when people walk through the door, they are disarmed by how odd it is. And I think that just changes, takes people out of their like, no one just ever walks into my coffee shop, just goes, "Give me a latte." Like that's yes. Even if that was their intention, when the minute they open the door, they're like, "Okay," and then we get to have a conversation. And then I get to start and I learn who they are. And then we have, and I don't know if I've even asked your question, but this is,
No,
no,
it-
this is the story. And
yeah.
like, it hasn't transformed into and transpired into any sort of financial success for us yet. I joke that my part-time staff make more money than I do, and it's not a joke, it's true. But we see this for the long run. It's meeting our basic needs. And when we feel like it has legs, and it's continuing to grow. This year is going to be our year.
2026.
2026. Yeah.
Well, first, Johanna, let me say I'm so sorry about your mom. That I mean, what a tragic thing to have to go through so quickly and at a time when everybody was, not really had the capacity to deal with things.
Yeah.
What a gift your mom gave you, to be able to sort of pursue this dream. That must just feel lovely when you can reflect on where it kind of started from.
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
but I wanted to pick up on something that you said about like how the coffee, I don't remember what you said. The coffee is just a vehicle to get them in the door. So what is it that you want when they get in the door?
I want people to feel seen and welcomed in a way that I think when we go through just the machinations of our day to day, we don't get from external people.
Hmm.
Um, I really want to do that. I really enjoy doing that. The staff that I've hired enjoy doing that. We all have, there's a mural on the back of our building that says like every person has a story to tell, I think, or something similar to that. And as mundane as that sounds, it is so true. And um, I'm like so everyone feeling overwhelmed and upset and um, you know, just exhausted by the world. And so this micro bit of community that I can help foster is just feeling like the thing I can do. And so then it gives me a release that, okay, I feel like I am not paralyzed. I feel like I can do something. And it really is just looking people in the eye and saying hello. And it's a very simple act, and I try, not to not to do it in a perfunctory way, but I try to like just like tell people something about them that I see. And it can be as simple as this fellow came in the other day, and as he was leaving, I just said, I love your mustache and your Hawaiian shirt, and you're giving me Tom Selleck vibes. And he just stopped and he said, he was my hero. He said, I adored him. He's like, you have just made my day. And he was so happy about that, you know? And it's such a simple things, but that's what I really hope that people get out of, coming into the space. And yes, the coffee is delicious and everything is made from scratch and there's love in everything we do. And I think people feel that. Um, but people feel seen, and that is the best part.
Tiny little acts of kindness and
Yeah,
then a ripple effect.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Congress's philosophy is about letting the community imprint their purpose into the shop's identity. Humanism places a massive emphasis on human agency, responsibility, and the meaning that we create for ourselves. So, how have you created a space that allows people to explore their purpose?
Well, I think like that initial saying yes to pretty much everything sure helps.
Mhm.
Um, we don't have a vetting process really, except for the fact that I have, an anti-discrimination and anti-hate policy for, renting the space or doing anything in there. Nothing I've ever had to flex, or use because I think like begets like in a lot of ways. But what I again as I mentioned, I don't want to, it's not my programming. I didn't create a space and like I like this kind of music, so this place is going to play that. It just really has been like, and it's been surprising and delightful. Like we've had, Mandarin stand-up comedy nights. We've had Farsi, storytelling events. We've had Yiddish, music. Like, there's been so many different cultures, different interests that have come through, and it all comes from, I think, that idea of like if when you feel welcome, you feel like this could be a place where you could be continue to be welcomed. And
Mhm.
we pick up most of our event bookings from people who literally wander in and say, "Oh, I could do something here."
Mhm.
And they say, "Would it be okay if I did something here?" And we say, "How about June 12th?"
Right.
And then we just take it from there.
Nice.
Yeah. I think, there's a friend of mine who used to run an event called the Equinox Vigil, and it was a secular approach to death and dying. And she had it, and it was an artist-driven piece that lived in a cemetery here in Calgary. It happened at the autumnal equinox, and it was a response that she had from losing her father and not feeling connected to the Catholic rites that were kind of put upon his death, and recognizing that as a secular person, she doesn't have a lot of these like things to do. And it was, it's one of the things I've mentioned to Nick is like, even though I consider my atheism a gift, I also have always kind of like thought, wow, the nice thing about being religious must be this church, this community that comes fully like locked in already. There it is for you. And that must feel really great. And I wish I had that. It does feel a little lonely. So I think to me, like Congress is my attempt at creating that kind of secular community space, not unlike a church or, a hall where you could go and know that, the people that are there are going to understand who you are and want to celebrate you. Yeah.
And Nick, as someone who's come from a religious background, do you also see that connection, or does that is there some negative reaction to that kind of framing?
So to me, I mean, same as I mostly deal with the audio and the show side of things, but I find at a lot of big events there's a disassociation between, the experience you think you're paying for, and then getting to a place and not having any experiences anywhere like that. Congress is more of a almost a disconnection from what the accepted social norm in that environment would be. And it's more of a place where it's like it's you and your friends. It's a very small, intimate venue show. All of the emotion is still in the music. It's not lost because of the production. It's really a reconnect back to what that as an art form is intended to be. And so I always like to say that my job is to stay the hell out of the way as
Mhm.
a recording engineer or as an audio engineer. The artist's job is to do his thing. My job is to make sure it gets translated to the people that are there. But I mean, I don't exist in that environment. I get to watch the show just like everyone else, and that is incredibly amazing. And I notice people come in and they have that experience, and it becomes a like almost life-changing event because they're not going to get that anywhere else. They're not going to get that for more money. They're there for the experience. They're there with their friends and their family. They're there to reconnect with humans
Mhm.
in a way that's non-disturbing and non-distracting. And it's, one of the things after a concert, somebody will come up and, they'll say, wow, this was amazing, or, I had such a great time, or this was the most wonderful experience I've had. And to be able to create that environment and then, work through it every day, that's quite fulfilling for me as well.
Right. Well, I can tell you as a musician that the sound person can make or break the experience. So you're not invisible. Um, Anyone who's been in the experience of having a bad sound person can tell you it is really an important job. So Nick, as president of the Greenview Business Improvement Area, you are actively working on neighborhood safety, beautification, and creative activation, like the Graffiti Jam. Can you tell us a little bit about like what is the Graffiti Jam and how do you see these neighborhood initiatives as an extension of a humanist commitment to collective well-being and social responsibility?
So really, I was asked to join the board probably 2 to 2.5 years ago. No real idea what their function was at the time. But it was one of those things where I feel like if you're in a community, it's just like going to work. If you go to work and you're not trying to make it even just slightly better every day, why are you going? And I've tried to live my life with that as far as the community goes as well. So certain things like an industrial area typically has a little more of an issue with crime because everybody goes home at 5 o'clock, and so it's an empty area. And the real idea behind all of that, including the graffiti jam, was that if we activate that area and we have more people in the neighborhood, typically crime would decline. The graffiti part of it is there's a very
A storied history in that neighborhood.
yeah. I mean, they had graffiti in the 90s. It was one of three locations in Calgary that the police wouldn't harass you as a graffiti artist. There was a place called the Foundation about 4 or 5 blocks away from the cafe now, and it was a breeding ground for many artists that have now gone all over the world.
It was literally just the foundation of a building that they would work on and tag. Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, and so now all of them have kind of spread around, and within the last, it's been 20 plus years, that history came to light, and we've decided that we were trying to get back most of the original artists that worked on that piece. And of course, through reaching out and learning a little more about the actual culture, it is turned into, I think the tagline was that it was the biggest graffiti style event in Western Canada.
Wow.
Outside Montreal, who does a big graffiti jam, we are the biggest one. Uh,
Wow.
and so last year we had 52 artists from all over the world come in and do 18 murals. And it's really taken off. We were also the only BIA to ever get grant funding for 2 years in a row at Acada. We had zines that were printed up and are in publication around a lot of libraries. And it's just been a really good event. We've also noticed that crime has gone down 40% over the last year in our neighborhood. That's the biggest reduction of any BIA in history. So Yeah, it's been a really good thing. Yeah, there's also a code of ethics between graffiti artists as well. Like they're not about to go and tag over another artist's work. There's a respect factor to that. So we've noticed a lot less for graffiti tagging and quote unquote unwanted graffiti, if you will. But it's been really cool to beautify the city, right?
Can I share the story of
Oh yeah.
our incident? So the first, and I'll make this quick, but the first year, the last year when we did the graffiti jam, we were hosting a visual, like a photography show in the cafe as well of pictures from that have been taken from 20 years ago or so, original from the original artists. And apparently a couple younger graffiti artists had their butts hurt that they weren't invited or that they thought it was like a sellout. Anyway, they had a beef with the event and expressed it by completely covering the front windows of our cafe in graffiti, like a one huge big tag that I came into one morning. And I was like, is this like guerrilla marketing for the event? I'm like, no, this is just vandalism, sheer vandalism. So literally within 20 minutes, I had like three of the artists were there scraping it off. We had it cleaned up before the end of the day. And then a bunch of conversations that happened on Reddit of people who were like saying like, dude, like how could you do this to Congress? Those guys are so nice, da 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 da. And a couple people who sent us messages saying we think it was these people, we think it was those people, and we're like, okay, well, whatever. Like, it's fixed, it's done. The next day, this one young man came in with like an envelope, just kind of gave it to us and ran away. And inside it was a note, and it said, I'm sorry. And there was $200 in it. And we're like, okay, well, we just consider this. This is done. We're not pursuing any, like, whatever. But the community basically called out their own and just said, guys, don't do this. And it was kind of that sort of thing. To see that happen was quite cool.
That is such a beautiful story of community coming together and of an opportunity for people to learn from, a mistake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And offer some reciprocity
Hmm.
in a way that still was very loving, very humanist. So what
Yeah,
a great story.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. Um, for anyone in our audience who might be dreaming of launching their own grassroots values-driven initiative, um, can you tell us what your advice would be? What's the harsh reality and what are the pleasant surprises that keep you going?
Well, I would say beyond the fact that $100,000 is not a lot of money, I think don't be afraid of doing things off the beaten path, figuratively and literally. I mean, like we're tucked away in an industrial area, which is still fairly central, but not in the downtown or, in the, arts district of Calgary. We're forging new space by being where we are. And people, you know, Kevin Costner, if you build it, right, they will come, is really working for us. So I think, when we were planning this place out, we took a little trip to Montreal as a little vacation and saw some really great spaces. And our takeaway from that was like, nothing has to be perfect. It just has to be interesting. It just has to feel authentic. And if you aren't faking it, people know if you are and they know when you're not. So that's been incredible. Also, a thing that I learned was I thought as a sort of a safety net, I'm like, well, I've been established in the community, in the arts community for a long time in the city. I've got a lot of friends, so at the most, worst case scenario, all these people that I know will come to the coffee shop. And it was completely the opposite. Nobody I knew came to my coffee shop.
Oh,
It was all new neighbors and strangers and my friends, like, a few, but mostly I just run into people and they're like, oh, I've been meaning to, I just haven't, that kind of life gets in the way. And I get it. And there was no, I don't have like a shit list of people, who hadn't supported me yet. But it was really, it took me a moment to think, to feel it. That, like, okay, well, you can't necessarily just rely on the kindness of your friend group. You actually truly have to rely on the kindness of strangers. And it was an interesting shift for me. Um, my friends have all trickled in, but they definitely weren't the ones that were like holding down the daily, the daily fort for me. And yeah, so that, and yeah, no hard feelings, but it was interesting to understand that, I guess my takeaway from that is there's other communities that you just don't know yet that are really ready to engage with you if you're meeting them in an authentic way. And that's really what we've learned.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nick, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I would say if you're, I've always looked at it like if you're going to do something, do it with intent and build it in a way that you only have to do it once. Um, and really, I feel like the cafe was like that. There's nothing about what I've done in that space that is normal. There's nothing that is industry standard. It is all stuff that came out of, the way that we live and, our house and the things that make us happy. And she's right. It's a different community that didn't know us yet, and we didn't know, but they are very accepting of, what they see that we're doing something different and they really love it. And so if it's something that's hard to do, that's probably the right way to do it. To be honest, nothing about this is easy, but I think it's worth the effort in the end. It's make it a one-off, make it a part of who you are, build it in a way that makes you happy, and go with it from there. And it shows every day with people coming in and going, "Oh, this is great."
Mhm.
Or this sucks. I mean, it could have gone either way.
But they didn't. People are hungry for authenticity. I hear
Yeah.
that over and over. People are exhausted by just how they're supposed to be, and they just want to be who they really are. And, it's just, yeah, there is like it's truly um like it's an invitation to be yourself in a way that I think a lot of people, especially people probably under 40, don't under like feel or understand, know how it used to be. You could just be an undocumented nut bar and and only your friends knew the stories of the dumb stuff you did. Uh, and you could live your life on your own terms, and people want to do that. And they want to be creative and expressive, and they want to do tactile things. And we have a speakerphone free policy in the cafe, like banned. Like,
Mhm.
um, and for the few people that we have to like, don't make me tap the sign, more people are just like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much that I know that I can come here and not have to listen to somebody else's phone conversation or video or whatever. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. And I realized we didn't really paint the picture when we started, but this really is in the heart of a very industrial area in Calgary. There's probably not a lot of foot traffic or
Oh no.
a lot of close residential people sort of coming in. It's sort of a destination. But there is a little bit of a trend in that area with the Citizen Brewing Company right there, and yeah, so there's sort of a growing, I think, initiative in that community for that kind of a thing. So the last thing that I wanted to ask is we do have an audience full of people passionate about community building and secular values. If you could issue one call to action to everyone here to embody their humanist values, what would that be?
I would say ask everybody you meet a question that you really want to know the answer to about who they are. People want to tell their story.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Nick?
more good than bad. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
You know, if you can do the good thing, do the good thing. And sometimes because you do that, you get opportunities with all the people that you meet every day. And this has been a great experience that way. I've met a lot of amazing people that have helped me in life, and I hope that I've done the same and helped them.
Mhm.
Amazing. Well, I really from my heart, I just want to express my gratitude for you coming tonight and sharing your story, but more just for how you are truly embodying humanist values in the work that you do every day. I see it every time I'm in the cafe. I see it in the generosity that you display in, in all of the different ways, but especially in, in the way that you're reaching out to everybody who joins and um just really appreciative. And so if anybody is in Calgary, where should they come and visit you?
Congress Coffee in the heart of Greenview Industrial. I won't prattle off the address. You can find us on the internet.
Yep.
But yeah, or follow if you just want to just see what we're up to, follow us on Congress Coffee YYC on Instagram. That is like the only I'm so social media. That's like the I do the bare minimum. My cool posters. That's the only thing I do.
Yeah, you can see what's going on. So thank you so much, Johanna and Nick.
Thanks so much.
Um, Frank, if you want to turn the recording off now. Okay.